Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
All right, welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Robert. So, Robert, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do for a living.
Hey, yeah, thanks, Dan. My name is Robert Gilbreath. I live down in Austin, Texas, and I am a fractional executive, which I grin a little bit, not only because I love what I do, but also because just even the term fractional executive has become more in vogue. I'm really just a consultant who happens to have a great deal of prior experience across several different sort of industries and verticals. And now I get to work for sort of a whole handful of different companies and apply all that knowledge that I've gained through the years in different ways across these different clients. I really thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. So can you just tell us like what industries you've worked with and like what you specialize with? Like, I guess without even like naming names, but even like company use cases today where companies are using your services.
Yeah, so I was the original CMO of a company called ShipStation that if anyone's in e-commerce or online retail might have heard of them. Pretty big partner with companies like BigCommerce and Shopify. And as being CMO there, I did a lot in partnerships and biz dev around partnerships, that whole like tech ecosystem that your listeners, I'm sure, is aware of. That ecosystem has been very good to me through the years. And so earlier this year, when I went full time into this fractional work, I really leaned back into that network. So, really kind of funny, not funny, but like you go to the app store on BigCommerce or on Shopify, almost anyone in there is a possible client of mine. I tell people I'm not really a shipping and logistics guy. I just happen to use ShipStation and appreciated what they were doing. And so like I have that background, but that ecosystem of agencies and system integrators and the whole tech stack that the retailers use, that's really my main focus. I guess I've also been lucky over this year of doing this where I do have a few clients. And forgive me if I look up over here. I'm a whiteboard guy and I have some notes that I jotted down, so I might peek up. I don't have a teleprompter or anything here. So it was lucky again, that network that I had built. It's not all e-commerce and SaaS related. So I've got a few clients that are in different pieces, whether it's still SaaS, but it's fintech, or even I've got a client that's in the hospitality space. We might talk about the tech we're using, but today part of the business is not building tech. It's true hospitality and people management and those kind of things. So yeah.
Yeah, so I was just curious, right? So let's like dial it back in terms of like, how you got started in your career, right? Like where did you start? Like how did you obviously now, you're like a fractional CMO, but before that, like where'd you go to college? What did you study? And like how did you get to
Yeah.
it?
Oh man, I love it too. So I'll fast forward. I know we've all seen the meme or the drawing of like an X and Y X and Y chart, and people think that someone's career is like that, right? Or even
Right.
whatever. And I tell people mine is like a spaghetti bowl, and it's a spaghetti bowl that's being managed by the highway department around Houston, Texas. If you're familiar with all like the crazy big highways and how everything goes, it's big bowls, right? So yeah, years long ago, but still in Texas, I went to the school that's now called Texas State, formerly known as Southwest Texas. I was there during that time and got a marketing degree. So I've got a marketing undergrad degree. And while I was in school, it is interesting because there's career actual history, but there's also like what I was really doing, right? And so while I was in school, I learned how to code websites. So you're talking early mid 90s. Someone turned me on to this piece of software that I have to mention because at least once a year, I thank this gentleman, Nick Longo, started a piece of software called Coffee Cup software. And it was not only did him and his wife start arguably the first internet cafe down in Corpus Christi, Texas, believe it or not. He also founded Geekdom in San Antonio, which is a tech incubator. But because he had this internet cafe, people could come get on the internet. He built a website for his own coffee shop. He started helping other businesses build websites. And then he built this kind of early WYSIWYG type tool that basically would help you build HTML. And that's how I learned HTML originally. And that to me, that is a pivot, it's sort of a micro thing, but that was a pivot in my future because I think from those mid 90 days. I don't think I've ever gone a month where I've not touched some HTML. And that I bring that up because like whether I am a front end web developer, which I shouldn't say that I am, I'm comfortable talking to that. And I even have one client right now that I've done some front end development for them, very lightweight stuff for the marketing site. Okay, so sorry, and Dan, interrupt me if you need to. I can ramble about this. I get my undergrad in the 90s from now called Texas State, and I didn't go into marketing at all. I should also say during that time, finishing up school, my dad actually started selling on eBay, and his first store was about 96 or 97. I was his helper. So if I wasn't in school, if I was back in my hometown, I was helping him
What
pick
was
back
he
and ship
selling?
auto parts.
Okay.
And so you got to understand, we're talking the first or second year of eBay. He was an authorized Ford part dealer. At the time, Ford didn't probably, I mean, they had a website, but they weren't selling anything online. He's also ex-military, so he realized that these servicemen get deployed and then they need parts. And now it's a lot different. More of the parts are interchangeable. But back then, I always tell the story. We had someone in the army in Germany from here had a Ford Ranger and needed a piece of the muffler assembly. And we realized that if we put international shipping available on eBay items back then, always could drive sales. I actually got us kicked off of eBay one time. I realized if I could do the same listing with different titles and slightly different descriptions, I could list like the same, let's say, catalog converter like 10 times. I didn't realize that eBay wasn't going to be into that. So we got kicked off. But yeah, so I had a little bit of auto background. So I actually worked for Ford Motor Company right out of college, not in marketing at all, and actually on a management track there, like a trainee track that was never going to turn into marketing. I did an interesting sales gig with Wells Fargo Bank after that. All this time, though, I was doing websites on the side for people. I was doing early SEO on the side. I didn't call it this back then, but you would have said I was moonlighting back then. Today, we would, the kids call it a side hustle or a hustle, but that's what I was doing. Part of it, I wasn't quenching my like e-commerce online want by the jobs I had, full-time jobs. I was doing it on the side. I mean, at one point I was actually an authorized eBay trainer as a side hustle. I think somewhere if you Google it right, I come up. My niche was that I would help bike shops go online by using eBay as their web store. And somewhere there's still an eBay live page where you can find me and other people that were doing like the bike and sporting goods niche. But yeah, I'm not going to ramble through. As quickly as I could pivot my career to get into e-commerce, so early 2001 or so, I was able to join a regional retailer. And because I had some financial services background and I was, a webmaster back when that was called, I was able to get this really unique job at a company called McCoy's. You're up in North Texas, you might have heard of them, but it's a family-owned third generation now, maybe third generation now, 100 stores or so, and they were gung-ho to do some more things with their site. And luckily it was like perfect timing for me. And I got to do some of that initial, like I really got to dig into that and have it be my career side as well. Yeah. So then, but fast forward, I worked for some different online retailers. Before we were recording, talking about like that you're going to be moving down to Austin probably. And that's awesome. Right. Can't wait to see you in person. But I've been lucky that there's been enough retail activity, believe it or not, in Austin, even some early e-commerce. And then, another thank you I like to give out a few times a year is a thank you to the fine folks at Volusion. People don't necessarily remember that brand, but like they were super early in this idea of hosted websites for small businesses. And they were really the first one to do that and moved that to Austin. And then you had this rush of other either things cropping up like ShipStation or Big Commerce moving here from Australia, when they sort of were establishing themselves in the States. And so I've been lucky to be a benefactor of like this flow of retail and now retail tech.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I had a sort of a career transition happened earlier this year. For me, I had already planned that in the next 3 to 4 years, let's say, I was going to go full-time fractional and just build out my portfolio that way. A little bit of a career transaction was placed upon me, if you will, at my prior company, and I just sort of fast forwarded that career plan back to that spaghetti bowl of career. I might have drawn the next stage as a very linear thing with a timeline, but things change. And so I just shifted and kept going.
So I guess like you mentioned earlier, right, your expertise has been primarily in partnerships, right? You work with e-commerce and partnerships. Can you just talk more about what a partnership is, like what the value of it? I think that many people don't understand what that even means.
No, yeah. And I'd say everybody has their own view. I'd say for me, I'd back up and say for me, partnership is part of an overall go-to-market that someone's going to have, right? And partnership is interesting because, a lot of folks just hear that and they're like, oh, partnership means I'm going to get inbound leads from someone. No, it might mean that, right? That's one of the many things that it means. But partnership might also be that I need to, there might be a tech integration partnership that needs to be very deep and very robust in order for both companies to do something really great for a merchant or the third party that's involved. The way I like to think about it, I've been just telling people it's the three W's. It's win, win, win. And so like both sides of the partnership have to be, in a good situation. And then the client, the third party merchant, whoever it is, has to be getting benefit from this and also just understand. Right. Like I'm trying to think of it. Just imagine if like partner A and partner B have nothing to do with each other and the market would never understand why they would be partnering. Can't force that partnership to happen. There's got to be, in my view of this and the way that I talk about partnerships, there's got to be an obvious third win there, right? For the third party that's in that equation. The other thing, I'm gonna be a little crass for a second, if you don't mind. When I take clients through, and it's something I also kind of did in my past life, I take clients through, let's just say, a partnership audit. So very linear spreadsheet guy here. Let's have a column of all the partners you have, what nomenclature to use for them. Like there's no right or wrong answer there. Are they tech partners or the agency partners, whatever, but I want to hear what my clients, how they talk about them. Then I'll ask, sometimes it's a CEO if they're small, sometimes it's a head of sales, just depending. I ask whoever is involved in partnership in the company to another column, kind of rate the partnership. Do you think it's good? Is it friendly? And some of it is a little touchy-feely. Then I also put in, I ask them also to like not only rate it, but what do they expect out of it, right? And then I add a column that I call the GAS column, and it's GAS, and it stands for gives a shit. Right. And so this is almost pivotal for some companies. You can have a very long list of partners. Some will care more and some won't. It doesn't mean the partners are bad, right? They're big. Maybe you're small. Maybe they already have other key partners in that place. And so for me, what I try to do is regardless of that GAS score, I help folks figure out most of these partners, even if they're too big to help the little guy, they still have offered up ways to work with them where you can capitalize on these partner relationships without even having a human that you're speaking to at the counterpart side of things. So that's part of how I work on this. But it's always, that whole flow is always in service of the overall go-to-market of the company that I'm working with.
100%. Yeah. I mean, that makes total sense. And that's something that I think that we are trying to address on our side. It's like we have one partner, but they're very big, and like the GAS scores you to call for them is pretty low. So I think it's important. So in terms of growing your fractional business, like what does that look like? I mean, do you have a limit of how many clients you want to take on, or like how do you plan to scale?
Yeah, I love that question. I can't play poker, and it's hard to see. You can't really see on Zoom, but like when I hear a question or an idea that really just like hits home, I get really amazing goosebumps. And so when you ask me that, it's like it hits home in many ways. I was working on my pipe. I have to do biz dev work for myself, right? So at least once a month, I'm going through my pipe. I use Asana as a project management tool for all my clients, as well as my own biz dev activities. So yeah, this is an interesting one that I can't say this is part of my transition that I don't think I've totally figured out. So if anybody's listening and they want to give me some advice, I will take it. Or you're doing biz dev work for your own entity as well, so you can get it. I personally today am not trying to like grow a consultancy firm where I have a bunch of people that are working for me. I enjoy the biz dev, the strategy, getting my hands dirty a bit. And so, yeah, I'm trying to juggle a little bit of calculus. Maybe it's a Venn diagram of like clients that I really want to be able to help my clients. This isn't about me just landing a bunch of work, right? And I haven't bought I didn't buy something from a TikTok video of like, here, sell this, these thing. I'm not selling like classes or subscriptions to my efforts, right? And so yeah, I'm trying to work through like the industries I like, the clients I like. I want to be able to. I really try to think about it like if I was let's say they're selling to retailers. If I was a retailer again, would I want to buy this thing, right? So that's what I'm really trying to think about. Or like there's a fintech group that I'm working with. Like, have I experienced this as a vendor or as a project manager? And it's like, yes, I can grok this, so I want to work at it. Yeah, I'll say when I left my last company, again, back to my network, and like so thankful for the network that I've built. And I didn't have to lean on it very hard initially. the word got out that I was a free agent. And within a few weeks, a company out of Park City, Utah, that was a partner company of mine, the founder president heard of what was going on and invited me out to Shop Talk that year. So got to go out to Vegas on behalf of his company with him. I was setting up a 10 by 10 booth with them, going to meetings. He was super helpful, and I got to go to an event that's really that's my world, right? And so was there to help him, but also it was nice for me to be able to go meet people face to face and tell them what had just happened, and I'm free. Like, let's try to do some work together. So, but it's I mean, as you know, BD work is evergreen, and so I just have to, I'm learning how to juggle time to do that. And then the other pieces of this.
For sure.
But
what would you say?
So far, so good.
Yeah, for sure. It's awesome. Like, what would you say is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew before you started your career?
Oh, overall? Oh man, I don't know if it's a piece of advice. Maybe together we can come up with what the advice is. I think just patience. And like, I'm very happy. I have no regret to where I am today. Again, that spaghetti bowl, you don't always know, hindsight 2020 or whatever else you might say, right? I can look back. There were some times in my life that I think if I was a little bit more patient about the situation I was in, let's say it's a career situation, or, we've all been like passed over by somebody at work, or someone's been hired above us type of things. I think if I had embraced those as moments more of learning and less of frustration, that I don't think it would have necessarily changed my career trajectory. I think for me, it's about patience and learning opportunities that I probably was maybe too naive and maybe a little immature. And so that would be the other thing. I think other piece of advice, and this is something that I inadvertently did, is like, I think it was really good for me to go work for big companies like Ford and Wells Fargo as my first career, right? And I don't know, the modern version of that is like, yeah, take the consulting gig with a big firm, right? You learn a ton, you learn systems, right? You learn process that if you're smart with it, you can apply that kind of stuff to anything. There's a level of sort of like, process management maturity that's harder to learn if you've never had that experience.
Makes sense. So if somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you, do you mind sharing your website or social media handles, just best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, if you just Robert Gilbreath on LinkedIn, if you can find me there. Also, my website's robertgilbreath.com. I warn people though, it is a basic, ugly site. Like, I'm not spending time building that site out. I'm spending more time on my client sites and helping them with go to market. So, but that's an easy way to find it. I'm totally open networker on LinkedIn as well. I didn't mention this earlier, but like, part of my career trajectory, multiple times I blame in a good way LinkedIn for being active. And I don't think I'm overly active. I'm just trying to be a helpful participant in that community, and it served me well. So yeah, I guess, find me on LinkedIn or just go to robertgilbreath.com, and there's links to my social and different things there as well.
Sounds great. Well, Robert, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.